music too.
Do my own material. I can improvise on stage in front of a crowd that just likes what I do and who I am, but acting is just a little.
Let me do this. Let's just start.
I don't know.
Start with this. What does this record bring to mind?
Oh man, cowboy hats and snakeskin
Hold
boots.
up to the camera.
Gap Band. First thing I noticed and loved the Gap Band for is because it was One Nation on the Groove. You know, the production style. And we was like, wow, it's another group that's kind of got one foot in the door with P-Funk, but they were also enough of their own thing that we respected and liked them. They were crooners, and it had some Stevie Wonder and some Marvin Gaye. It was soul more than it was funk to me. Even though this was considered funk, it just wasn't loose enough to be funk. It was a little more blueprint.
Yeah.
But it was definitely hot. Yeah, been super hot, super hot.
How about this?
But that, you know that you know that's sound, the move, everything, yo. It was like, that's Junie and Bernie. Oh my God, Earth, Wind and Fire.
Hold that one up.
This is different. Earth, Wind and Fire, spiritual group, not a funk group. I don't consider them funk.
Okay.
I consider Earth, Wind and Fire, what's it called? What's Talib Kweli? What do you call that?
Shit.
Like, it's soul, but it's also, it's upliftment. It's
We can start
gospel.
Because the
Oh yeah, the refrigerator's freaking out. Earth, Wind and Fire is kind of.
Should be if you turn the temperature dial all the way down, it should stop. If there's a temp dial, then make sure you throw our key.
Meditational.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry. You're saying it's
Meditational, motivational, which P-Funk was too, but this was like high art. I don't know if this was any more funk. It's definitely funky, but I don't know if this is any more funk as it was jazz, as it was like adult contemporary, like fine art, charts. You know what I'm saying? Musicianship, stick to the script and play it right. Well-written songs. These are composers, you know. But
Charles Stepney out of Chicago did all those arrangements, and then he died.
word?
They were very, very arranged. All those horns and strings. Okay.
Every man has a place, in his heart there's a space. Earth, Wind and Fire bridged the gap. The kids liked it and the grown-ups liked it. That was different from P-Funk. Only the kids liked it when it was out, you know?
Yeah.
Kool and the Gang. Can't get enough of that funky stuff. Of course, Kool and the Gang. They put down part of the blueprint of funk. Their style of it. That's blueprint funk right there. Jungle Boogie. Summer Madness introducing that particular type of synthesizer sound.
They were loose. They weren't as tight as Earth and Fire. They had
They jammed. I know what you mean, improv.
Yeah. Because they were jazz. They were jazzy. Very jazz influence.
Extremely jazzy.
Then they changed up and added this lead singer and became another different kind of band.
Dark and day, girl, and love we are. Yeah, smooth voice.
Hey, JT.
JT.
Okay, and what about this?
Oh, stop it. This is weird. You know, we never even tripped on the fact that, you know, George Clinton's the only person that could get away with doing shit like that, and you knew he wasn't on no funny shit. He was just messing with your mind, like out of space, freaking you out. Like, Mothership Connection.
You know, space is interesting about space.
On the mothership.
Did you tie that in or think much about? There was all those different kinds of things like Easter Island. It seemed like George was connecting the dots between a lot of stuff about aliens on Earth.
Absolutely.
The space. You know, he was doing something. That
I used to think George was crazy because someone told me George believes black people from outer space, the Dogons. And come to find out, I believe that now too. Blacks, whites, all of us. You know, I think the Syrians might have populated Asia, maybe the Pleiadians, Europe, maybe the Dogons, Africa, maybe. I feel like we're genetic splice, just like dogs. Like we make dogs out of wolves. I feel like some type of humanoid thing that left Earth millions of years ago, or that's not even from this planet, came to this planet. I believe those stories and took some of their DNA and mixed it with some of the primate DNA here, and that would definitely explain the missing link.
I like that.
You know, it definitely
Damn right.
explain. And why is that unbelievable to people? Like, nobody wants to believe that. Like, we're not a genetic splice, you know. Why can't we be? We make bananas look the way they look. We got fruit looking all crazy, you know. We can all come from one thing, too, because look at all the variety. And that would explain all these things we don't use. Maybe the tonsils and that other thing we don't use and that tooth that we don't, all that stuff, and the maybe the third eye, and those are things that were needed on that other planet. And some of us occasionally are born with a tap into it. And they had it when they made us in the lab so that we don't use all that stuff, so we don't rise up, you know. And then left us with a few commandments, is peace. We got all the uranium and gold we need or whatever it was. And ever since, we've been just running around not knowing what the heck.
Let me ask one more question, man. You between you and how you guys brought funk into hip hop and took P-Funk and made it part of the mainstream of that. Now we're going here in the 21st century. What's the legacy of that music now? Or is it in the DNA of pop music now? Is it lost? Where do you see that particular brand of funk?
Musically, it's all in everything we do. You know, not just Dre, almost everything. It's just little by little keyboards. P-Funk was one of the first bands to say, let's not even use a bass on a lot of stuff. Even though, you know, Stevie would try to move on a song or two, a lot of groups would. They just laid in it for a bunch of albums and realized, like, yo, this is hot. But eventually, in the 80s, little by little, half the songs, half the artists on the radio. And then by the 90s, nobody was using live instruments. Mostly keyboards doing stuff. Rare to, you know, a string instrument, rare to even be found in it, or horns or whatever. So that in itself is one way. And then not just that, the thinking, the patterns, the movement, the way it moves. Everything moves that way. For a while, it's just coming out of that. It's just coming out of that now. With that riding around, I'm getting it. That dun 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 dun, that pattern, like we're going into some Latin rhythms right now. It's just coming out of the zone. But the 90s and the whole 2000s, that main bounce everybody had, yeah, that was laid by them cats in the 70s. But so it's there, but the mentality had to change. That had to change, just like, you know, we felt different in the 50s.
Right.
Than we did in the 60s. And then we did in the 70s. Then we did in the 80s. Then we did in the 90s. And so, yeah, it's just, you know, Pac and Dre and them ushered in the new, what's become the now thinking. Hip-hop got us started. New York definitely birthed hip-hop as an art form. But that gangster stuff revolutionized the culture.
Absolutely.
You know, so the thought process behind P-Funk, it didn't jive with the kids now. It didn't make sense with what we have to deal with now. It doesn't go with the technology. In my case, you asked me what made me go that deep into it with Digital Underground. I didn't think about it. I just am a product of it. I'm a clone of Dr. Funkenstein. That's in me. You know what I'm saying? That's in me just as much as Check 1 2 1 2 is. So I can't help it. That's just how I think. One Nation on the Groove, Free Your Mind, Your Ass Will Follow. I was branded by that. And I was already there, I believe, before I heard P-Funk, and just George spoke to that and unlocked it. But I know a lot of people that was on that vibe that George was on. Not many in music, but George brought it to music.
He took a lifestyle and made music with it.
Well, it's not just a lifestyle. I think it's also human acceptance. It's it's real. P-Funk's real different than say Grateful Dead, or real different than some of these folk and hippie bands or some of these jazz bands back in the day. But the message is not that much different than what Gandhi, what Martin Luther King was trying to say, what John Lennon was trying to say. You know, all through history, people, you know, it's okay to let your hair grow because that's who you are. If you always gotta shave your hair, if you feel like you're not accepted in the workplace or in your home or by your people, if you feel like you must keep a lot, just keep in mind that's like a cement parking lot. That's not trees. That's a city. You know what I'm saying? It's unreal, which is fine, but you can't get to where you feel like I don't sweat and you know what I'm saying? We're animals. Animals don't distinguish black and white. Animals go down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
On each other. Animals don't distinguish black and white. And these are all concepts, those are placebos in our head, those lines. And we keep them in place just by always, you know, 50% of black people think this, 50% of white people think this. You know,
Placebo
Middle
syndrome.
Easterns think this, Americans think this, Southerners think this. We all are searching for the same thing, just, you know, love, acceptance, social acceptance. Everybody wants family. Everybody's just, you know, opposites attract. That's a natural thing. Strengthens your DNA too. I'm a mutt and I'm proud of it. You know what I'm
Well, man, on that note,
saying?
thank you so much. It was excellent.
For real, I feel like we didn't really get into any topics like.
We got it everything.
Really?
We did, yeah. Thank you. All right, guys, cut.
There it is.
It was excellent. Oh, the P-Funk stuff, the whole journey you had,